So today I think the only part of the notes that we will actually get through is dealing with the precision part of it. So let's make sure we have a good understanding of that, first of all, okay? So when determining precision, here's what I'm going to recommend you might have to do. You may need to do some conversion to help you make a comparison. Okay? So in other words, if you look at it and you're like, well, I'm not really sure which is the smaller unit of that it's measured to, not which one is the smallest unit of measure, between the two, which one was measured to a smaller unit of measure. So here's kind of like the question you're going to have to ask yourself. When it says which is more precise, here are two. We have 4 and 33/100 grams, and we're trying to decide if that is more precise or if 4,337 milligrams is more precise. So what do you think, Zach? Why are the milligrams more precise in this case? Okay, what do you mean a lower unit of measurement? Explain that a little bit better for me, because I'm not understanding quite yet. You can support it, I'll go with it, but is it quite enough support yet? It's a lower unit of measure. So can we go with the fact that milligrams are smaller than grams, first of all, in this case? Why not? I think this is what Zach is trying to tell me, possibly, but I don't really know. Why can't we just say, it is going to be the 4,337 milligrams because, hey lady, milligrams are smaller than grams, aren't they? Do you agree? Are milligrams smaller than grams? Okay, so if milligrams are smaller than grams, what's there to even talk about? Trevor?
The grams, it's 4.33 hundredths.
Okay, so you think that one's more precise?
Yeah.
Because it's measured to the hundredth, and these guys are measured to the nearest milligram. So the whole, okay, well, let's explore that. Are you guys convinced that he's right? Or you think Zach's right? Only one of them can be. It's a 50-50 shot here, isn't it? There's two to choose from. So I think maybe, let's write down this question. Even though I know there's a 7 there, it's to the ones place. So is 1 milligram a smaller unit of measure is 1 milligram a smaller unit of measure than a 100th of a gram? Because that's really what we're comparing here, aren't we? And since Zach first said, you know what, I think that milligram, that the one that's measured milligrams is the correct answer. Let's check it out and see if he's right or the other one is the correct one because it's measured to the hundredths place. Is 1 milligram a smaller unit of measure than a 100th of a gram? Do you know? Do you know the answer to that? Anybody just happen to know the answer to that question? Kind of tough to figure out maybe. Okay, so how about we convert one of these to the other one's measure, and then we can compare them. Okay, so we're really checking right now to see if the 4,337 is the one that is more precise. Okay, so let's take that one, 4,337 milligrams. Put it over 1, make it into a fraction because we're going to use a conversion factor and we're going to convert it into grams so that then we can compare it as grams and grams, and then maybe we can make a better comparison. Okay? So where would those milligrams go in our conversion factor? Up or down? What do we do? When we want to convert and we want to get something converted, we're converting to grams. So we want the grams up or down, and the milligrams up or down. The grams down? No, we want the milligrams down. Why? So they'll cancel. So that makes the grams have to be upstairs, doesn't it? So does anybody know the conversion factor for this? What is the conversion factor for grams and milligrams? Haven't learned that yet anywhere along the way, huh? Okay. In 1 gram, there are 1,000 milligrams. In 1 gram, there are 1,000 milligrams. Well, remember we cancel out our milligrams because we're converting, and we're converting it to grams. And so now we're going to end up with 4,337, those are grams left upstairs, over 1,000. So we need to divide that out. What's the easy way to divide by 1,000, the shortcut way? Move the decimal, which direction? To the left, how many times? 3, yeah. So this is really the same as 4 and 337 thousandths gram. So what we did right now is we just renamed 4,337 milligrams as grams. We just converted it. We did dimensional analysis. So we just said this right here could be thought of as 4.337 grams. Okay, so now can we make a statement that it can be like, I am convinced. Okay, which one are you convinced about? The milligrams? Because what? It goes to the thousandths place, and the other one goes to the hundredths place. Yeah. So we would say, so let's answer this. It says, is 1 milligram a smaller unit of measure than a hundredth of a gram? We're going to say yes. We just converted it and found out it is. So we're going to say that 4,337 milligrams is more precise. When it is renamed, it is to the thousandths place. And maybe you want to jot that down in your notes somewhere too. When it is renamed, when it is converted to grams, it is to the thousandths. It's measured to the thousandths, and the other grams were only measured to the hundredths. So it's a greater level of detail, the smallest unit of measure. Okay. Let's look at number 2. Now notice what I said at the beginning. I said you may need to do some conversion. Now I tried to ask you if you could give me an answer without doing a conversion with this last one, and you couldn't. So that's why we converted. We thought, well, we can't answer it. We'll do a conversion problem and rename it. How about number 2? Do you think we could figure out which one is more precise without doing a conversion problem in that? I think it's a little trickier. If you try to do a conversion problem, it actually sometimes almost ends up confusing you more. Let's try and do it without a conversion problem. What question could we ask here? First of all, which one do you think it is? So if you just had to take a wild guess, which one do you think is the more precise? According to what you just answered to me about the slide from the confidence level, you said the minutes was more precise than the hours. Isn't that what you guys said to me? Right. So let's just go with that theory that we think because minutes are smaller than hours. That was your reasoning, right? Minutes are smaller than hours. So you thought that one would be more precise. So let's decide then, here, this is measured to the nearest what? Minute. So is 1 minute, it's measured to the nearest minute, is 1 minute a smaller unit of measure Is 1 minute a smaller unit of measure? This is kind of thoughts you need to have. This is the process you need to go through. Then, the hours are measured to the what? Tenths place. So we're going to ask ourselves, is 1 minute a smaller unit of measure than a tenth of an hour? That's really what we're asking ourselves here. Is 1 minute, because the minutes are rounded to the nearest minute, so is a minute a smaller unit of measure than a tenth of an hour? What do you feel? Anybody know what a tenth of an hour is? an hour. Okay. A tenth of a 60 would be 6, wouldn't it? So a tenth of an hour is a block of 6 minutes. Whereas a 1 minute is a, so which one's a smaller unit of measure? The minute. The 1 minute is a smaller unit of measure than a tenth of an hour. So let's just kind of show that. We would say 1 minute is less than 6 minutes because a tenth of an hour is 6 minutes. So 1 minute is less than 6 minutes. So we're going to say that is 1 minute a smaller unit of measure than a tenth of an hour? We're going to say sure is, yes. So we're going to say which one is more precise?
67.
Yeah, so the 67 minutes is more precise. It's more precisely measured. Any questions about that one? Okay. Let's look at number 3. Now we got some centimeters going on and some millimeters. Let's just talk about centimeters and millimeters relationship in general. Which one's smaller, centimeters or millimeters? Millimeters, okay. So if we use that reasoning, we would say then that we think 260 millimeters is a more precise measure. If we have that incorrect thought process that says whichever measure is smaller, but that's not our thought process. It isn't millimeters are smaller than centimeters. Our thought process is this. Centimeters are measured to the what place? Thousandths. And millimeters are measured to the what place? No, they're really not. There's a 0 in the ones place. So this probably got rounded to the tens place. That's really what probably happened here. When there's a 0 here, chances are it got rounded to the nearest tens, like 60 or 70 or 80 or whatever, okay? So here we're asking ourselves, is a thousandth, oh, wait a minute. We were thinking that millimeters might be smaller, so let's go keep that direction. Is 10 millimeters a smaller unit of measure than a thousandth of a centimeter? That's a really good question. If you have 10 millimeters, if you have 10 millimeters, is that a smaller unit of measure than a thousandth of a centimeter? What do you think? Do we have to convert, or do you think you can answer this already? So the answer to this one is no. What? Tell me how many millimeters are in a centimeter? Actually, 100 centimeters in a meter. How many millimeters in a centimeter? 10. So it sounds to me like we have a centimeter, don't we? So we have a centimeter being compared to a thousandth of a centimeter. Wouldn't the thousandth of a centimeter be smaller? Okay, but let's actually do a conversion here, just maybe to make it a little bit, maybe that you couldn't follow that, and let's just make it a little bit more understandable. Let's take the centimeters and let's change them to millimeters, or we could take the millimeters. I guess we've been kind of going with the one that we were doing. So let's take those millimeters and let's change them to centimeters, okay? So let's take this 260 millimeters and let's convert it to centimeters. So we're going to multiply by a conversion factor that has millimeters and centimeters in it. Where do we want those millimeters? Landon? Up or down? Millimeters up, millimeters down. Help them out. Lexus?
Millimeters down.
Millimeters down, okay? So we're converting from millimeters to centimeters, so we want the millimeters down. because the goal is to get these millimeters across the way. So now anybody know the conversion factor for that? What would it be? We talked about it. 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter, okay. So now we would multiply across and we'd have 260 centimeters over 10. Well, dividing by 10 is the same as moving the decimal one place to the what? Left, okay? So 26 centimeters, 26.0 I guess you could say, but. So now, are those millimeters a smaller unit of measure? This is measured to the, we could say 10th place even though it turned out to be 0, right? It's measured to the 10th place and this one's measured to the 1000th place. And in reality, we probably shouldn't worry about that. We should just say to the ones place. So we're nearest millimeter compared to the thousandths, or nearest centimeter, I mean, compared to the thousandths, just like we said, is 1 centimeter smaller than 1,000th of a centimeter? No. So the answer to this one is no. No to that. So which one are we going to say is more precise? The 0 and 265,000 centimeters. Even though centimeters are actually larger than millimeters, they really are. But yet it turns out that this is a more precise measurement, because when we compare them the way we should compare them, we find that one's measured to a greater level of detail. It's a smaller unit of measurement. Okay, questions on that one? Okay, let's look at number 4. How do you feel about number 4? 33 milligrams? 33, what is that? This one right here, 33 thousandths of a gram. Can you make a comparison without making a conversion? That? Do you think these guys, the thousandths of a gram, is more precisely measured than milligrams? Why?
Because it goes to the thousands and kilograms.
So this goes to the thousandths, and this goes to the nearest whole number. Okay, well, wait a minute, though. This is a thousandth of a gram versus a 1 milligram. And that's not the same. So we're basically comparing 1 milligram to 1,000th of a gram. So let's, so is 1 milligram smaller than 1,000th gram? And Sophia just said, I would say the same. So, if you're convinced they're the same, you would say what then? Which one's more precise? You'd say neither is more precise. One's just as precise as the other, isn't it? And if you're like, I can't tell, I don't agree, I don't have any idea that they're the same, then what you would have to do is you'd have to say, okay, well then let me convert one or the other. So let's take those grams and let's convert them. Oh, see, that should be a 0 there. Let's convert them just to see that, you know what, is Sophia right? And anybody else who agrees with her? If we convert that into milligrams, where do we want the grams and the milligrams at? The grams on the bottom and the milligrams up, okay? Because again, our goal would be to get those grams to cancel away. So what's our conversion factor going to be? 1,000 milligrams over 1 gram, right? So it appears that we are going to multiply that 33 thousandths times 1,000. What happens when you multiply by 1,000? What do you do? Move the decimal to the right, and that becomes 33 milligrams. So now, this is to the ones place. This one is to the ones place. Is one more precise than the other? No. So we would say neither is more precise. It isn't because they came out exactly the same. That's not the reason. It's because they're both now milligrams, and milligrams both measure to the nearest whole milligram. That's the reason why. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to turn our student